Okay, everyone comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who wants to go first?
I'll go. I hate taxes.
I hate closeted gays.
That's your answer every time, Kovac.
Uh-huh.
Jesus Christ, here we go again. Kane, did you finally think of something to bring to the session?
Underwear. I hate uncomfortable underwear. I hate it when it grabs your and suffocates your ball.
TMI, but at least you brought something this time.
Bro, that's just because you wear Hanes. Fruit of the Loom for life.
I agree with Ed.
I agree with Hang. Cane's is a good brand.
What?
No, Ed, it's not because of his brand. It's because Kane is Asian, and Asians have small.
I will fucking come over there. Guys, no fighting! These sessions are supposed to relieve stress, not...
Oh, I'm about to relieve some stress, alright. Come at me, you feral ghoul!
Oh my god.
Oh, easy, William. What adult even wears Fruit of the Loom anyways? Excuse me? You're looking at him. Kitty shit. Do you guys remember the cornucopia from the Fruit of the Loom? How that never existed? That was kind of wild, huh?
Yeah, the Mandela effect. That would make a good video.
That's great, but maybe wait till after the... God damn it.
She always goes prematurely. Yeah. Just like William.
Welcome back to the Dragon's Tongue, where we question our reality over one stupid little logo that was on our underwear once upon a time. Maybe. So before I get too deep into the video, I just want to go back to the beginning and give you a little bit of history on the Fruit of the Loom company before we get into the conspiracies. We start in Rhode Island in 1851. Long time ago. A textile mill owner named Robert Knight and his brother Benjamin started the B&B and R. Knight Corporation. In 1856, they branded the actual company Fruit of the Loom. They originally sold muslin and other miscellaneous cloth to businesses and the like, small traders and stuff like that. It was a friend of Robert Knight's named Rufus Skeel, whose daughter originally painted the logo. She painted fruit, and one of the fruits was just like, they're like, okay, this is good, and she painted it on the cloth, and that kind of snowballed into them being like, this is a good logo. So that's where the Fruit of the Loom logo came from. It was from the friend of the main guy who created the company, and his friend's daughter, who was a painter. After the brand was trademarked, it skyrocketed and became like a front runner for athletic brands and athletic wear, which definitely made the price go very way up. Like they got up into the millions pretty quickly. It quickly skyrocketed to becoming a household name. Everybody had this. And that's basically where they are today. It established itself. That's just a small, even that brief history. Like 1851 is a long time ago. But yes, that was basically where the Fruit of the Loom company started out. And this small tiny bit of history that it is that I read off of Wikipedia, so who knows if it's even true, but you know what? That's not what we're here for. We're here for the beans. Or the cornucopia. The cornucopia that goes in the beans? So, let us get down to brass tacks. You know what we're here for, boys. You know what we're here for! Possibly one of the most well-known controversies about Fruit of the Loom is its logo. This is, by the way, this is nothing compared to the actual controversies that have plagued this company. It's actually quite a lot, which kind of ties into this in a way. I'll tie it together at the end. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But just keep it in your head. Keep it in your head. Don't worry about it. Keep it in your head. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Keep it in your head. The logo is, as they say, a bunch of fruit. Just a bunch of fruit. But lots of people, and by lots I do mean lots of people, don't remember a blank background, but they rather remember a cornucopia behind the bundle of fruit. People from all different backgrounds remember this cornucopia that lie behind the fruit, oftentimes in vivid detail. In 2018, the brand team did a survey kind of asking people about this, and over 68% of the people who responded to this survey said they remember the cornucopia in it. So why is this even all a big deal? What's with the damn cornucopia? What's with the bundle of fruit? What's with the damn company? Well, I'll tell you why this is a bit of a conundrum, if one would say. I mean, you could kind of almost rationalize that, well, there was a cornucopia a long time ago in it, and the new logo is just the modern logo. That's what a lot of people said that they thought it was, that the cornucopia was the old logo and that they modernized it without the cornucopia in it. Exactly, that's what they supposedly had thought for a long time. Turns out, the company says that, and still claims to this day, that there has never been a cornucopia in the logo. The company even released the logo throughout the years that it's kind of been keeping track of its logos, right? Any logos from that time, and it turned like none of them feature a cornucopia in it. This is not proof, though. This has led a lot of people, mostly, people who aren't crazy, I guess, to theorize that this is simply a product of the Mandela effect, a phenomenon where a bunch of people share the same false memory. Theories about why the Mandela effect happened vary, but a lot of, from research has concluded is some of it's, media influence. A lot of the people who have these Mandela effect things are people who are online a lot. But, again, we'll get to that. But also some people say it could be social cues, or even, to the extreme, parallel universes that are overlapping, or timelines that are overlapping. Common Mandela effects that are pretty dang, well, like I said, common, are Sex and the City. It's Sex and the City, not Sex in the City. The Monopoly Man not having a monocle, which is just a crime. An older example being JFK, his assassination. People reportedly have said that there were 6 people in the motorcade when he was assassinated, when in reality there was only 4 people. Which is funny because in our last video we brought up JFK too. It's a conspiracy. It's a psyop. We gotta bring up JFK every video now. Yeah, we gotta find some way to tie our video back to JFK somehow. That'd be gold. That'd be kind of hilarious, yeah. Perhaps one of the most famous movie quotes of all time was even considered a Mandela effect, and that comes from Star Wars. The infamous line, "I am your father." A lot of people quote it as Luke, "I am your father," when in reality the line is, "No, I am your father." He never says Luke by name. Or how about the incident that gave the effect its very name? The name was solidified when Nelson Mandela, a political leader, died in 2013. This came as a surprise to people, mostly because a lot of people remember Mandela dying in prison back in the 80s when he was held prisoner, when he was taken to prison. And these people remember this so well that they even remember news coverage of his funeral, supposedly, which is just crazy. That's just crazy. That's one of them where I'm like, I'll get to the cornucopia thing and why I think that's why I think it's just why I believe in it, but this one is the only other Mandela effect that I have found that actually holds some weight to the idea of it being a psyop, because the other ones, like the Luke, I am your father, Sex in the City, like Sex in the City versus Sex and the City, not a big difference. You can easily rationalize it. Exactly, you can rationalize it in your head. Most of them you can rationalize in your head. Luke, I am your father, a lot of people say that's for context instead of it actually being the actual line. So many of these things. The Monopoly guy not having a monocle, the reason I said that's a crime is because he looks like he would have a monocle.
Exactly. And the Mandela one is the same. Like, the JFK one, too, I can totally see people being like, oh, there were 6 people. No, there was 4. But you're right that the Mandela effect, the Nelson Mandela's death, is one where how does your memory conjure up a whole funeral, like news coverage of a funeral?
Yeah, that's weird. Like, unless it was a different funeral and people just thought it was him, but again, why would they think it was him unless it talked about him dying? Like, why would anyone think that it was...
Yeah, no one just thinks, oh, they're in prison, I guess they're dead. This random funeral must be theirs. Like, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. I don't know. That's the only other one other than the... Honestly, this one and the Fruit of the Loom one are the only two that I feel like have any real weight. That's not an actual Mandela effect thing, which is hilarious because it was named after Nelson Mandela.
Right. It's weird, man.
It's weird. So, about the cornucopia. Are these just false memories that people are having of this iconic logo? Well, the answer is, unfortunately, not that simple. The conversation around false memories or even manufactured memories, even shared amongst individuals, there is a conversation to be had there. But what about absolute proof? What about confidence in those memories? Does that mean anything? Does the confidence... Because here's the thing, if you can't even... I guess I'll get to this later, but there is a conversation to be had about false memories and manufactured memories. It is there, but what about confidence in proof? Is there any proof to the cornucopia? Well, let's get into that. Unlike many Mandela effects, like I was just talking about with Kovac, the cornucopia one, the Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, conspiracy, Mandela effect, whatever you want to call it, is different from the other Mandela effects in the way that it is hyper-specific. Many people, including myself, only learned what a cornucopia was because of the Fruit of the Loom. In fact, to emphasize how much I know that I learned the cornucopia from the Fruit of the Loom, when I was a kid, in my town, I had a health food store that has a cornucopia with a bunch of fruit coming out of it. Now, a person would easily say, oh, well, that's where you learned it. You just thought it was Fruit of the Looms. Here's the kicker. Here's the mousetrap. I thought that a cornucopia was called a loom because the Fruit of the Loom thing. So when I saw that health food store, I thought it was a bunch of fruit coming out of a loom because it was Fruit of the Loom underwear and it had a cornucopia on it. Fruit coming out of it must be the fruit in the cornucopia. That's what it means. Fruit of the Loom, Fruit of the cornucopia, right? And like so many people claim that this was how they even learned what a cornucopia was. And I am one of those people. I thought for the longest time, because I was a dumbass kid who assumed things rather than simply asking my parents, so I thought that a cornucopia was called a loom. In fact, to this day, when I think of the word loom, I think of cornucopia. And when I think of cornucopia, I think of a loom. I've seen cornucopia in places. I even call the cornucopia from the Hunger Games the loom because I can't not associate cornucopias with looms and looms with cornucopias. When Minecraft came out with the loom update, which was years ago, I can't believe that's been that long.
I know, it sounds crazy, right? It's actually been a long time.
They've had the loom in in Minecraft for a long time, and I remember when that update came out. That makes me feel very old. But when that update came out and they announced that they were coming out with a loom or that kind of thing, and you were able to make banners in Minecraft and stuff like that, I was confused for a split second because I was like, how do you make banners out of looms? Because I thought a loom was a cornucopia. That is how I know for a fact that what else do you think that could be? No, there's nothing else. There's nothing else that could be. For all the people out there that learned what a cornucopia was because of Fruit of the Loom, they're convinced that there was a cornucopia. I'm convinced that there was a cornucopia. Not because it wasn't even because I saw another logo, because there is that conversation to be had. If you saw another logo that was like, oh, cornucopia with fruit coming out of it, and you asked your mom or your dad, what is that? And they're like, oh, it's a cornucopia. And then everybody comes out with this like cornucopia and Fruit of the Loom. I can see how it can connect, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that was that thing. For me, it's different. I literally thought that a cornucopia was called a loom because of this. So how is that? And I understand that making this video is a little bit weird because I'm biased. I'm pro cornucopia. You're pro cornucopia. That's funny. I know, it's kind of a funny way to put it, but I am pro cornucopia because I know for a fact that I learned it. Anyway, we're gonna get to more. My mom, I asked her the other day, she's an older woman too. She's not a millennial. A lot of these people are millennials. A lot of people attribute the cornucopia thing to internet brain rot of people being like, oh yeah, there was a cornucopia and there wasn't there. Exactly. No. My mom, older woman. She was born in 1969, okay? When I asked her, what is Fruit of the Loom? She's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, what does the Fruit of the Loom logo look like? The first word that came out of her mouth was cornucopia with fruit coming out of it. How was that possible? I have no idea. And again, not only is she an older woman, but we have just got internet. None of us in my family are big internet people. I'm probably the most into internet. Even my brother is like not as deep into the internet as I am. He doesn't love YouTube the way I love YouTube, where I spend hours on it. I'm like, I am the most internet brain rotted person here. Right. And even so, my mom still was like, cornucopia, first word that came out of her mouth. Right. How is that possible? I don't know. We'll continue with the video and we'll see. I know, I was divulging, sorry. I apologize, okay? This one hits a little harder for me, okay? Now you know how the people about instant coffee felt. Okay, well, I didn't hear anybody in the comments being like, oh, instant coffee wasn't made of syrup or something. I don't know, dude. Continue on. In the essence of finding proof, I found a article that was talking about the Mandela effect and the cornucopia thing, and supposedly a TikToker claimed to find proof when she and her husband were playing a board game from the 90s. The board game was basically a game where you pick a card, the card has clues on it, and when you have to guess what brand it is based on the clues that are on the card. The TikToker, whose name is Tyranny Arsenault, it's a great TikToker name, explains that the clue on the card that she had picked was the words that were clue to the brand were underwear, cornucopia, and apples and grapes. When she revealed what the answer to that card was, the clues on the card, it answered Fruit of the Loom. But as many, and this is another notch in the proof area of the cornucopia having the Fruit of the Loom having a cornucopia in it, but this is not absolute proof. As pointed out in her comment section, it is a possibility that the game itself, even in the 90s, was a victim of the Mandela effect, claiming that just because maybe they misprinted the cornucopia on it because they themselves thought there was a cornucopia on it, right? Like, obviously, that a lot of people were saying, wow, you just reinstated the fact that this is a common misconception of the logo. And at the same time, I do agree with them that it is not absolute proof, but it is another, like I said, it's another notch in the belt. And we're getting to, when I get to the end of this video, I'm going to explain why I think some of the things that I think, because I'm trying to hold it in, I'm trying to be unbiased until my final, you give your final words, the final frontier of cornucopia. So I don't know. But we're going to get to that, but this is an interesting thing because the game itself claims that cornucopia was in the Fruit of the Loom logo. Not absolute proof, but definitely an interesting little piece of history. Another interesting piece of, again, I say proof loosely here, but another interesting thing of proof is that there was a album cover and an album back in the day, and the album was called Fruit of the Loom, and the album cover had a cornucopia with fruit in it. And it was released in 1973 by Frank West. And this is the part where I didn't write this down in my script because I'm just going to read this to you, but this is the part where things get kind of interesting. So a person on Reddit was trying to hunt down this kind of thing. They remembered the Fruit of the Loom logo, and they were trying to hunt down some sort of proof that it ever existed. In their findings, they found the Fruit of the Loom album and wanted to ask some questions about it. I'm not sure, it doesn't say on here because this is a screenshot, but they contacted Reed Chappell, who is Ellis's son, who is the guy who did the Fruit of the Loom album cover, the art of it. And this is what he had to say. The guy who, the Redditor who was hunting this down says, I received a reply the next day from Reed Chappell, Ellis's son. This is what the kid, I say kid loosely because the other guy, like, he's the son of a guy who's very much older. But he says, hi, redacted, that's the Redditor's name. This is Reed, Ellis's son, responding for my dad here. I remember the cornucopia specifically, as does my dad. This is the second time we've been contacted about this album cover, and Ellis and I are more than happy to answer any questions you have about it. I was a little kid when Ellis painted the Fruit of the Loom cover, and I remember specifically this album being a reference to the cornucopia in Fruit of the Loom's original logo, which is where my dad says he specifically got the inspiration for the design. When I talked to him about it, he said, why the hell else would I have used a cornucopia? Which again, like I said previously, this Mandella effect is not like the others where it's just a common Berenstain Bears versus the Berenstain Bears. Yeah, no shit, people misremember the goddamn word of it. Like, it's so little of a change. Words, how we see them versus how we pronounce them, like being an issue, I can totally see that, dude. A cornucopia, of all things, being in a logo is something somebody would remember and notice because it is hyper-specific. And like this guy says, why else would I have used a cornucopia? He's exactly right. Why the fuck else would you use a cornucopia for anything unless it was to reference something, or maybe you thought cornucopias were cool, I don't know. But this was a kind of a big part of it. Anyways, to continue, the food coming out of the flute is soul food, actually. A ham hock, cabbage, black-eyed peas, etc. I remember when, in my mind, Fruit of the Loom quit using a cornucopia in their logo and switched to using the fruit by itself. It impressed me because I thought the logo looked better with the cornucopia in it. In my memories, this was roughly around 1978 when I was in 2nd grade. So anyway, feel free to ask away. Thanks a lot, Reed and Ellis Chappell. So, what the fuck is that about? So obviously, while I'm talking about this, I've probably showed a picture of what the Fruit of the Loom album cover looks like, and you can clearly see the inspiration there. And I'm sure a ton of people will call it out being like, well, obviously that's where a lot of people got it from. People thought it was Fruit of the Loom when it was actually Fruit of the Loom. Both the titles are the same, both the things are the same. However, my blocker to this excuse is that people remember the Fruit of the Loom logo in like I said before, vivid detail. When you ask them, what did the Fruit of the Loom logo look like, they say a fruit with a cornucopia behind it, or a cornucopia with fruit coming out of it. A brown cornucopia with fruit coming out of it, simple logo, right? What they don't say is a big mechanical looking cornucopia with a whole bunch of weird fruit coming out of it, because you can see, like, in the Fruit of the Loom logo, it's common fruit, apples, grapes, that kind of stuff. But in the Fruit of the Loom album cover, it's very much, like he said, referencing soul food, because it's a musical album cover. The cornucopia itself looks like a instrument. So to me, my backing, my contract, my what is that called? What the fuck am I what am I thinking of? Your combat. You combat this. I combat this. I do henceforth combat this excuse with the fact that it looks nothing like the actual Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, right? Because, like, if people were remembering this Fruit of the Loom cornucopia, they would be seeing, like, no, it's actually silver. But what the picture that I've been showing of the cornucopia with the fruit coming out of it, that is supposedly an artist's rendition of what people remember. So it's clearly not, I don't think it is people taking the Fruit of the Loom album cover and mashing it kind of in their memories with the Fruit of the Loom logo. I don't think it's possible because, again, vivid detail. People weren't saying, oh yeah, I saw black-eyed peas, I saw cabbage, I saw all that kind of stuff. They're not saying that.
Right. It's a big the album cover, there's, like you said, always room to talk about it and have a conversation, but definitely I would not say that the Fruit of the Loom album cover is where people got the misconception, and I'm saying misconception with air quotes here, but where they got the misconception for the Fruit of the Loom having a cornucopia in it, because it is, like you said, hyper specific, and the two logos are very different, right? If you had, you could, a person who knows what the Fruit of the Loom logo, again, allegedly, originally looked like, would see the album cover as a nice callback to Fruit of the Loom, but the Flute of the Loom, the album cover is literally called Flute of the Loom. Like, it's clearly a compliment to Fruit of the Loom in that way. So to me, it's like, you could say that it kind of looks like the Fruit of the Loom logo, but it is still very different. The colors are completely different. The cornucopia is completely different. All the food in it that are coming out of the cornucopia are different. Exactly. It doesn't even look like it. Because, again, I was like, oh, maybe that's where people got it from. The album's called Flute of the Loom. I can see people mixing it up. But once I looked up the album cover and saw what it looked like, I'm like, when I think of Fruit of the Loom, and I think of what I saw as a kid, that doesn't pop up at all. No. And this was a saxophone kind of jazz type of thing. And my parents didn't really listen to jazz. My mom kind of did listen to the blues, but we didn't really listen to the saxophone or jazz. I wouldn't have seen this. I don't think so.
Yeah, and mind you, people, this was in 73, this album cover came out. So what this is, if this is a product of the Mandela effect and not, I don't know, company lying to people, if it is a Mandela effect, this is probably the oldest Mandela effect, older than even the actual Nelson Mandela thing, because if it is a Mandela effect, Frank West and the original artist who did the Flute of the Loom album, the painting for it, they thought that the cornucopia was in it back in the 70s, before anyone even thought Nelson Mandela had died. So if this is a Mandela effect, the Fruit of the Loom logo controversy went back way before, not way before, I mean, it was 73, but 73 compared to Nelson Mandela supposedly dying in the 80s is a bit of a, it's older.
Right. And the fact that he had absolute confidence saying, why the hell else would I put a cornucopia in it?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I kind of have to say about the whole that is another, it's just another little thing to think about. Again, this is not absolute proof. There's, again, just like with the TikToker in the game thing, there is 100% possibility. Well, I'd say 50% possibility, but that's just my bias. I would say there's definitely a possibility that the original artist could also be a victim of the Mandela effect in being like, well, there was a cornucopia in it, and the Fruit of the Loom's like, no, there was never a cornucopia in it. There was never a cornucopia in it. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's not absolute proof, but it is another interesting thing to keep in mind. And I never knew about this. The card game thing and the album cover for Fruit of the Loom were two things that I never found out about. I never found out about them until I was doing research for this video. So keep that in mind kind of too. I maybe sound like a crazy fucking conspiracy nut being like, oh, there was a cornucopia in it. But I'm telling you right now, I didn't even know about any of these things. My vision of Fruit of the Loom is the Fruit of the Loom that I'm showing right here. So, just keep those things in mind. So, it's clear that at the very least, people are remembering a different logo. But how can that be possible if the company itself has told us again and again that there was never a cornucopia ever in its logo, ever in existence? There was never even a cornucopia. I doubt any of the motherfuckers even said the word cornucopia. I don't know about that, but I'm sure they did during the height of the cornucopia madness. Yeah, exactly. Screw tinfoil hats. We're putting cornucopias on our heads now. That's the new look for the common crazy conspiracy theorist guy. Yep. Many people just believe that it is Mandela effect, that is false memories. And no one else believes this anymore than the Fruit of the Loom company itself. In the 1990s, they made several commercials poking fun and even mocking those who had remembered the cornucopia in the logo. Whether it was done in malicious intent or not is kind of not the point, because either way, they were kind of just trying to address this kind of controversy, and in that respect, it completely fucking backfired. It only made people way more suspicious and mistrustful of the brand, and it did big damage. Maybe not as big as damage as the other controversies that the Fruit of the Loom has gotten themselves into, but it did damage. In 2020, an analysis was done by the Branding Science Institute. Okay, that's a thing. And they found that 32% of consumers were distrustful of the brand and didn't buy their stuff for the brand because of the cornucopia incident, because of this Mandela effect thing. People were not, they were just like, screw that noise. We're not buying any shit from you when you are what they consider lying to their faces. But this isn't, even so, 32% is a pretty big number. But I will say, like I've been saying this through this whole video, Fruit of the Loom has gotten themselves into way more controversies than this, and I'm not going to get into all of them yet, but I found some that are pretty bad from, unions, the mismanagement of funds, and they went bankrupt at one time. They, like I said, the marketing strategy of mocking people who had a different version in their head of the logo than it really was. That was all a big part of why they went bankrupt, but they also had they had factories in other countries, and there were supposedly some not so good working conditions for the workers there, and they eventually had to settle with a couple different lawsuits, apparently. Big lawsuits too, because it was human cruelty type stuff. I told you it was bad, okay? I told you that it was bad, and you can look it up if you want to. It's there. Fruit of the Loom has had some way worse controversies than just their logo being mismanaged or them lying to us. So in conclusion, what is it about the Fruit of the Loom logo that had changed, that had been so different from the one that so many people remember? Some people don't remember it at all, and a lot of people remember what the Fruit of the Loom logo originally looked like. But why is this? What is it about this? What do you think it is? Do you think they're lying to us, or do you think it's just mass delusion? Oh boy, I don't know. I never wore it as a kid. Um, I lived in England when I was really young, and then when we moved out here, like, my dad was, like, ballin', so my dad was ballin'. Not only is he hot, but he's also rich. God, dude. You gotta stop hitting on your dad? Yeah, I'm not gonna stop that, okay? Alright. But anyways, we didn't buy those kinds of just like household name brands. You're telling me that you got the good Dundies? I might have gotten the good Dundies. The proper Dundies, as they would say. Yeah, the proper underwear. My point is that unlike you, I supposedly never had it as a kid, so I can't. When I think of Fruit of the Loom, when you're showing me, when we started talking about this and doing this video, you were showing me pictures of the Fruit of the Loom logo, and I was like, okay. I thought it's kind of a terrible logo because of the fruit being in it, in terms of it just being like, oh, we're just fruit. Like, it's just a pile of fruit, yeah. Well, I'm telling you what right now, here's my point. The Fruit of the Loom logo that you showed me with the cornucopia in it actually looks a lot better branding. It does, doesn't it? Rather than just a bunch of fruit on the floor? Yeah, exactly. You could have at least thrown in, like, a loom, or something to make it stand out a little bit, but it was always... apparently it's a pretty famous brand, so I'm not gonna say, like, oh, it's terrible branding, because clearly it did very well for them, but... I never got that. I never, when you're talking about this and you're very passionate about it, obviously, it's clear that you saw something, but I've never had that experience. I never wore that brand. Like, are you saying that the first time I showed you the logo and everything, that was the first time you've ever seen it? Pretty much, yeah. The only first time I've ever actually looked at the logo, because I've heard of the brand, Fruit of the Loom, for sure, but I've never seen the logo or paid attention to the logo whatsoever. Okay, so you really don't have a say on it, kinda. No, not really. If you're telling me you saw it when you were a kid, and a bunch of other people saw it as a kid, I really don't know what to believe, because I can 100% believe that because of their controversies, which is the thing you were getting to, but because of their controversies, I can see them trying to rebrand in a way. Yeah, so, yeah, that's where I was going. Thank you for bringing me back to that, because I did want to talk about that. So, the whole reason behind me even mentioning the controversies was the fact that a lot of people believe, it is a common, belief that the Fruit of the Loom logo was rebranded, and the reason that they pushed so hard that the cornucopia never existed was because it was their old logo, and they wanted a rebrand, particularly after the bankruptcy, which that was far after they started saying that the cornucopia never existed, but I do find it interesting that they had all these controversies and that all of a sudden the logo that everyone thought they knew isn't the truth anymore. Right. That's basically what I'm saying. You're right that I just kind of have no say on it because I neither have an idea of what it actually looks like nor of what the Mandella effect version looks like, so okay, that's fair. What do you believe? I think they're lying to us, dude. I think it's a psyop. I honestly do. It is either a psyop or I'm from another dimension. Because I don't give a shit what anybody says. That was the logo. That was the fucking logo, dude. I can't express how much it bothers me that they say it's not the logo. That at the very least, because again, while I was researching this, I didn't just go proof that the cornucopia existed. I looked up several different things, and there are ads in the 80s of people like cornucopia. God, I keep saying cornucopia. I wonder how many times I said cornucopia. But I've seen Fruit of the Loom advertisements back in the 80s. No cornucopia. Video proof that there was no cornucopia. It's right there. But I'm telling you what, I remember a cornucopia. And to me, the thing is that they could have experimented too, right? They could have had a cornucopia in it on several certain times. What I think it is, and I understand that this is gonna sound crazy. People are gonna call me a nut job, but I think it's a social experiment, because when I think of people who think they remember something, right? They're like, I remember this. And then they go online and then it says that never happened. And people are like, oh, I 100% think that part of it is, I hate to say this because it makes me sound like a nut, but it's the government trying to figure out what we can and cannot push, right? What's more innocent than a logo that we had on our underwear when we were a kid, right? And again, specificity, the idea of having a cornucopia in it being like, oh, this is something that's going to imprint on people. And then when we turn around and say it never happened, how many people do you think will look it up and be like, oh, the corporation says they never had the logo? And then how many people are going to accept that and how many people are going to fight against that? That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, not really. It's, again, I know it sounds nutty. It sounds nutty. It does. It's wormholey. It's holy. But that's what I think it is. I think it's a social experiment. Because there are so many things that you can manufacture, and back in nowadays, if you really think about it, we don't really know what's true and what's not in the way of history, right? I want to bring this up right here, right now. When I was doing my coffee video, which I did the week before last week I did the Sinatra kidnapping video. The week before that, I did an instant coffee video. When I looked up, I put into my search engine to try and find B-roll pictures of people drinking coffee, right? I looked up, I put into my search engine, Americans drinking coffee, because I wanted specifically just pictures of Americans drinking coffee. When I looked through the images, it took me a while to even realize it, but the only images that came up were literally of African Americans drinking coffee. Now, I don't have any problem with African Americans drinking coffee, even so much so that I was like, okay, let me take this picture. This picture would be good for this part of the video. But then I started scrolling down, and I started realizing there was almost no Caucasians, there was no Asians, there was no Latinos, there was nothing, which we can all agree, America is a very diverse place. Mostly white, mostly Caucasian, right, mostly Caucasian, but there's a lot of people, like, I didn't see no Asians, I didn't see no Latinos, it was almost every single fucking picture was African Americans, right. My point there is that if you look up in Google, in anything that is supposed to be a trusted way of researching something, and it tells you something that you think is contrary to what you remember, how are you going to react to that? Are you going to say, oh, no, absolutely, no, that's right, that was that's the thing, that they never had the Fruit of the Loom. The Fruit of the Loom never had a cornucopia in it, versus those of us who do remember and say, I think there goddamn was. Right. And even those videos from the 80s, how do we know that they're not created? See, because I've gone down this rabbit hole and I'm into more of the in-depth, Occam's razor, I think it's more believable that the country is playing a big joke on us than I came from a parallel dimension. Because those are the two options. I'm sorry, I am not misremembering shit. You can't convince me that I am, because it was so hyper-specific. Because I thought for the longest time a cornucopia was called a loom. How do you misremember that? And again, I didn't have internet growing up big time, right? I am into more internet nowadays, but I wasn't into it big when I was a kid. I didn't have internet as a kid. Right. I had phone data, and when I went places, I looked stuff up. That's about it. Right. That was the, like, I remember it because I had Fruit of the Loom underwear. Right. I just, no, there's no way you can convince me. And the idea that people are saying that, like, oh, it's more believable that it's a mass delusion than a company is lying to us is crazy to me. I honestly think Occam's razor is, you're tweaking Occam's razor there a little bit, because Occam's razor says the most believable option is most likely true. The more believable option to me is that a giant corporation that brings in billions is lying to us, rather than a bunch of people having a mass delusion. That sounds crazy to me. Right. And again, even like I said before with the album cover thing, that was in the 70s. So this has been going on. People have been supposedly misremembering the Fruit of the Loom logo for longer than the internet has actually been a thing. Right. That's a big one too. Because a lot of people in the articles that we read and swafted through, I don't even know if that's the word, but a lot of them are just saying that it's kind of just internet brain rot kind of stuff, where it's like, you want this to be true, you want this to be a thing, right? Because you want to be special in that kind of way, and it's interesting, because it has a Fruit of the Loom in it, and now they're supposedly saying that, at least according to that Redditor, which is not absolute proof because we don't know if that's even true. Right. 100%. Sorry. We're still a little sick, still recovering, but we're feeling pretty good, obviously. I think that it was far before there was ever internet. Yeah, this has been going on for way too long for it to be just an internet brain rot thing. Right. So either they're fucking with our memories, or we come from parallel universes. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think it's a mass delusion thing. Right. Because, again, none of the other, except for the Mandela incident, the actual Nelson Mandela incident, which is what it was named after, all the rest of them are pretty easy to see, right? Like I said, Berenstain Bears versus Berenstain Bears, Monopoly Man not having a monocle. He should have a monocle. Of course people would think he has a monocle. There was the Ace Ventura movie where there was supposedly a reference to the Monopoly Man and the guy had a monocle on. I can see how people's brains would kind of connect. There was the Luke, I Am Your Father. Again, people are quoting that, but a lot of times I think it's more people using context, being like, Luke, I Am Your Father. They're referencing the film. Like, all these things, so many of them that I combed through could easily be explainable as misremembering. I think those kinds of things are definitely just people being like, oh, I remembered it as this. Flintstones versus Flintstones. Alright. It's just, it's not, yeah. But the cornucopia in Fruit of the Loom is probably the oldest Mandela effect, and definitely one with the most kind of like swayed proof to it in a way. I don't know what else to say. This video is 46 minutes long, but I don't know what else to tell you guys, because it is severely frustrating to me, because I remember it. Like I said, I asked my mom just casually. She didn't even know that it was a Mandela effect thing. A lot of people don't. A lot of more people do now, because it's a lot of millennials that are already online. Again, like you say, they're wanting to be special in that kind of way. I understand that. But like even my mom, who didn't even know that it was a Mandela effect, because when I told her they supposedly say there's no cornucopia, there's never been a cornucopia, she was like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, there was a cornucopia in it. Like, she didn't even know about it until I just told her just a week ago. Like, it's just crazy to me that they're going with that. And I completely understand people who don't buy the brand anymore because of that controversy. They are lying to us, okay? Wake up, America! Okay, maybe not. I don't know what to tell you. I didn't do any treasure time this time because I don't know what to tell you. I was told that like no, number one, this video is way long. Number two, I had a hard time getting it out. I've been busy this week. Whatever. There's the video. Cornucopia happened. Cornucopia, pro cornucopia. Okay, hashtag cornucopia existed. Oh, so I hope you have a good day and I hope you enjoyed this video. It was kind of wacky, I know, but tell me, put it in the comments if you remember the cornucopia, if you don't remember the cornucopia. What do you think about all of this? What do you think about all the evidence? Do you think it is evidence, or do you think it's just people, again, misremembering? It's all a victim of the Mandela effect, and if that's true, how much do you think you actually know then? Because if the internet says that something's not true and you remember it you absolutely remember every little detail, and yet the internet says it never happened. Do you believe that? Is that something that do you believe that you trust the internet over your own memory is kind of what I'm saying. And do you trust a big corporation over your own memory too? Especially like they could manufacture a bunch of shit. Like it's just, I hope that they wouldn't. I hope that they don't. Honestly, it'd be better if it kind of almost was a false memory thing, but I don't believe that it was. But that's my opinion. Of course, if you think I'm a nut job, you're free to think that. I kind of think I am too, because it's a wild theory that they just manufactured the cornucopia just to fuck with people, just to see like what people would and would not trust later on in generations, if that's a thing. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Tell me what you think, because I'd love to hear about it, honestly, what people do and do not remember. I will be seeing all of you next week, when I inevitably jump off a cliff and dive into a river and get eaten by sharks. Peace! Whew.